Welcome along to today's QDC Information Session. It occurred to me a few minutes ago, actually, that, Paul, we haven't done this since September. We normally do it more regularly, but we haven't done it since September. So this is quite thrilling, actually. So my name is Jeff Brown. You've probably heard from me insofar as my emails and one or two phone calls are concerned from those of you who've asked questions about the program already. And I'm basically responsible for all non-content issues of the program, and Paul is responsible for all the content of the program. Okay, let's go. What are we going to be talking about? Well, I'll be introducing you to Paul in a second. He's the head of faculty. We'll talk about why the QDC is beneficial, who makes up the QDC faculty, what are the candidate profiles that are suitable for the QDC. Paul will take you through the QDC syllabus in detail. He'll break it down. We'll talk about the study partner program for those of you who like to study with somebody else, especially with when it comes to coding. Talk about the help desk, and we'll conclude with a Q&A session. So, look, you probably know who Paul is, but just to break down his background a little bit, he was educated at Oxford and Imperial College. He then spent 17 years. That's quite a long time, Paul. You look much younger than that. 17 years in the banking sector. He started off as a quant. He then became a quant trader, and then global head of e-trading quants desk. He's also an author. He's also professor of maths for computer science at Imperial. He's the founder of Thalessians. Most of you probably know the Thalessians. It's been going for a few years. Amazing group, thousands of members. They put on some incredible events. And for those of you who don't know who the Thalessians are, check them out on LinkedIn. That's a quick summary of Paul. So, what is the QDC about? It's a very comprehensive 6-month part-time quantitative developer course. There's one lecture a week. Globally, basically. It's not necessarily delivered from London. It depends where the lecturer happens to be. This is it's a professional qualification. It's not an academic qualification. And there's a very, very big difference. So this is incredibly applied. As you're going through the 6 months, you're going to be basically becoming a coder or improving your coding skills, programming skills and so on. So it is a very it's a very comprehensive course. It's quite an intensive course. You can make it more intensive the more work you put into it. That's entirely up to you. It's comprised of 5 modules, 23 lecture weeks. There are assignments, there are end of module tests, which Paul will take you through in a few minutes. And then there's a final exam, which can be taken from anywhere in the world. And this is the course objective: to develop fundamental skills of quantitative developer role. It's designed by practitioners from quantitative finance with experience in model development for derivative pricing and systematic trading. That is it in a nutshell. And I'll tell you who it's designed by in a second when I come onto the faculty. It's 3 instructors, all specialists in the field of quant finance, and the primary coding languages excuse me, that you're going to be learning are Python, C++, and KDB. And again, Paul will go into more detail on that. Very, very highly practical, applied program. that allows employees to directly use their newly obtained knowledge in the workplace environment. There's no question of that. So this is why it's a 6-month program and not a 1 or 2 week program or 8-week program. It's 6 months. So who's the faculty? Paul, I've already introduced you to, the founder and CEO of the Thalessians. We've got Ivan Zdankin, who is, all 3 of these guys designed the program. All 3 of these guys obviously lecture on the program, and we've kept the faculty to 3 for a very specific reason, which is that when you have too many faculty members with different styles and different approaches, and they all have their own materials, for programming, I don't think that's ideal. This is 3 guys who know each other extremely well. They've been working with one another for several years now, and it's a very tight-knit program. There are syllabus review meetings every 3 months, and syllabus changes whenever there needs to be syllabus changes. Saeed Aman is the co-founder of Turnleaf Analytics, which has a global reputation. It's an amazing organization. It's well worth checking it out. He's also a lecturer at Queen Mary University, and Ivan works as a director of systematic trading at Barclays. So in terms of the candidates going through this program, there's a lot of them. They come from all over the world, from the UK, the US, Europe, Asia, Australia, Africa, and India. So it is a global qualification. For those of you who want to get in touch with QDC alumni, you can drop me an email. If you want to get in touch with me, incidentally, you can give me a call as well. But yeah, if you want to get in touch with alumni, then no problem at all. So the candidate profiles, I'll read these out because this is extremely important. I think if you don't fit into one of these profiles, whether professional or academic, then the QDC is not for you. In terms of professional profiles, either your background or your current role, quantitative analysts, risk management, actuaries, those working in hedge funds, asset managers, IT, quant trading, insurance, model validation, risk managers, data scientists, those pricing or trading derivatives, and structurers. Your academic background needs to be either in computing, maths, physics, banking and finance, that's banking and finance, or engineering. And as I say, if you don't fit into one of those profiles, then honestly, this program is probably not for you. It'll probably go over your head. These are some of the employers who send their delegates onto the QDC program. There's many others, some of which we can't put on this presentation, but anyway, these are some of them: JP Morgan, Deloitte, Nomura, Imperial, UBS, Credit Suisse, Huawei, and Deutsche. The QDC journey literally starts here. So this is an open evening information session. Excuse me. And this is where you start gathering information about the program. If you haven't done so already, in terms of the brochure, our website, this should be a really comprehensive, detailed breakdown of the syllabus, which gives you a strong sense and feeling of what this program is going to be about, what knowledge you're going to be acquiring, and what skill set you're going to have at the end of the 6 months. So this is what we do in the information session. We discuss the course details. This session is also being recorded, so if you want to review the session or forward it on to colleagues, then it will be made available. And then you make a decision and you decide if this program is for you. Then you apply online via the registration form. You can also email me. I can email you a PDF of the registration form. And we say here the admissions team will confirm acceptance within 3 working days. It's usually within 1 working day, but a maximum of 3 working days just in case. And you'll get all the materials before the start of the program. You'll then go through the modules. There's 5 modules of varying lengths. And there's also a forum which is, I'll take you through the form a little bit later, actually, towards the end of the presentation. There's an online test at the end of each module, and then there's a final unseen written exam at the very end of the course. Okay, I think it's time to hand you over to the inimitable, I mean that, inimitable Paul Billiken. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you very much for calling me inevitable, Jeff. It's a pleasure to greet you all today, and let me tell you a few things about the program. So we have the overall setup of the program. So you are normally invited to join the live lectures, right? So not everyone does, because you may be in a different time zone. They tend to take place sort of London evening time. If you cannot join them live, then you can watch them in as recordings. And although we do encourage people to join the live lectures so that you can ask questions during the lecture, you can, of course, post questions on the forums, and we will get back to you within a few business days if you have any questions on the material of the lectures. So we also have the recordings that you can watch. We set assignments, which there are assessed assignments that we set for each of the modules, so you can play with the code, so you can actually do something that is creative, and you can get some stuff out of it. We also test you with multiple choice questions where you basically have to pass the module tests in order to advance in the program and get the certificate. I'm sorry. So most of the exercises and case studies that are included in the program, they're based on real-world examples, and they're based on practical experience that the instructors have. And in addition to the core content of the program, we also have ad hoc webinars which you can also attend, and they may be given by us or other software engineers that have been doing this for a considerable amount of time, so you can actually learn from us, and you can actually learn the state of the art. So this is kind of the there is the core content, which is supposed to take you to a level where you can actually employ software engineering and programming as part of your job, and then there is the more advanced content, which brings you to the frontier of what people are currently doing in this area. So let me tell you a little bit about each of the modules. So module 1 is taught by Saeed Amin, and Python is something that you cannot really do without nowadays. So whatever you do, you actually have to learn Python, even if it's just to interface with ChatGPT. So it's very difficult to do any kind of job nowadays that does not involve some degree of Python programming. So Python is by far the most popular language. So if you go on the Importance of Being Earnest language index, you will see that TOB index, you will see that Python is always kind of near the top of the index and has been there for a considerable amount of time. Python is the language of machine learning, of artificial intelligence, of data science, of all these things, right? So even if you don't intend to necessarily become, the kind of bread and butter developer, then you really need to still learn Python, because that opens up possibilities of being an ML expert, of being a data scientist, and just generally being able to work with data in a number of different professions. It could be trading, it could be finance, it could be regulatory, it could be nowadays life sciences that also utilize primarily Python. Or maybe you want to be a hacker and you want to hack stuff. We don't necessarily endorse that. We don't necessarily encourage you to do that, but I mean, all of that is done in Python. Or build websites. Okay, it's a combination of JavaScript, PHP, and Python. But Python is something that allows you to build fairly robust web applications using tools such as Django and Flask and others. Okay, so this is also the module where we teach you to deal with data. Then the second module is actually taught by me, and it's about KDB. So KDB is all about big data. It's all about real-time data. If you have data arriving in real time, then chances are you'll be working with KDB. If you have big data, and I mean terabytes or petabytes of data, chances are that this is the kind of product that you would be using, especially if you're working in finance, where nearly all the big banks, nearly all the big hedge funds use KDB to store big data and to collect real-time data. So again, this is not the kind of language that you will find at the top of the TOB index, but it's probably one of the most important languages in finance. This is why we decided to include it in this program, and it significantly improves your employability and basically the salary that you can charge, or the consulting fee that you can charge if you know KDB. The next module, I'm sorry, I have a bit of a cough, so please excuse me if I'm so I'm going to try not to cough into the microphone as much as possible. So then we have C++, which is delivered by Ivan Zhdankin. Ivan Zhdankin is a quant with a lot of experience. He's worked at many different organizations such as Ernst & Young, Barclays, and JP Morgan, which are known for their very strong quantitative and software development efforts. So he really knows his programming, he really knows his C++. So this is the module that delivers the fundamentals of C++, and also you consider some of the real life examples and use cases from finance. Some of our members, that's actually me, are on the program committee for CPPCon, which is the world's premier C++ conference, and we actually determine what goes into CPPCon and basically indirectly determine what goes into the language. And I'm always in touch with the creator of C++, with Björn Strustrup. I won't kind of disclose too much, but Björn and I are currently working on a book. I've just interviewed Björn for this book, so if you want to learn more about what's really current in C++, I would really recommend our program for that, because we are at the forefront of C++. The next module is a continuation of the previous module. You will know that in order to make effective use of C++, you really need to understand data structures and algorithms. So C++ is built with, on top of the C++ standard library, which includes something known as STL, which is perhaps the world's foremost library of algorithms and data structures, vectors, maps, and ordered sets, and so on, that you can use in your work. Sometimes you may need to write custom stuff. So, for example, if you're in the high-frequency trading world, you may need to add some stuff like non-blocking data structures to STL. Well, on top of STL, but it's kind of an essential skill, kind of being able to work with these data structures, being able to work with algorithms in C++. And finally, there is, last but not least, there is Module 5 that I teach. It's on designing algo trading applications. So we talk about how these algo trading applications are architected, what kind of parts they contain, how to engineer something like this. And also, I don't think a lot of people really teach that, but it's also about things like high-frequency trading. So we have quite a lot of high-frequency trading content in Module 5. What kind of data structures do you use? What kind of optimizations do you use? There is just not a lot of information. It's a very secretive domain. And high-frequency trading is uses something that is known as low-latency computing. And it's becoming important generally so for all sorts of applications, including robotics, and that's another reason to attend Module 5 and the rest of the program, because Module 5 builds on the rest of the program. So
I've got a question, Paul.
Yeah. Let me address that question. So In terms of overall coverage of the course, is it evenly split in terms of languages, or slightly heavier in C++? You will see there are 2 modules in C++, but I wouldn't say, I mean, okay, C++ is a difficult language, but so is KDB. So I wouldn't necessarily say that we overweight C++. We just use C++ to introduce some stuff such as algorithms and data structures, and we find that C++ is a convenient medium, really, to introduce those ideas. So I wouldn't necessarily say that we spend more time on C++ than on Python and KDB. It's just that C++ has several important niches. I mean, for example, there is this pricing libraries, as well as electronic trading libraries, especially in the HFT space. And we kind of recognize that. So there is some content in optimizing C++ in Module 5 as well, and designing algo trading applications. But there is also content in Python in that module. But yes, we have Module 4, which introduces you to data structures and algorithms, and we use C++ to do this. But of course, you have data structures in Python. Of course, you have data structures in K, Q, and Java and other languages. But I mean, once you've learned them in C++, you should be proficient with these ideas, with these data structures and algorithms, and ideas such as algorithmic complexity across the board. Let me go to the next slide. I think this is, Jeff, this is your slide. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Krisan, for the question.
Okay, thanks a lot, Paul. I'm amazed that even as bunged up as you are, that you can still talk with such clarity. Is great. Thanks a lot for your explanations of the syllabus. So what's the study partner program? Well, it's really simple. If you want to study with somebody from your organization, if we have somebody on the next cohort from your organization, then and if they want to study with you, then no problem. If you want to study with somebody in your country or your region, no problem, or somebody working in a similar role, that can be very useful. So this is a very effective program that we encourage. Okay, so the help desk, this is basically the forum, the QDC forum, and it's very active. So this is not only for you know, if you're doing some coding and you can't figure out why it's going wrong, you come through with you know, with a question, and the faculty will help you out very promptly. There are just 3 faculty members, but they are very prompt in their responses. We say a maximum of 24-hour response time. It's usually much quicker than that. It's usually within hours. You can also use this forum to discuss, you know, things that are in the news. So it doesn't just have to be asking questions to the presenters. It can be sharing ideas, you know, sharing your experiences of the end of module tests. It can be sharing whatever experiences, you know, whatever you've read in the news. It can be something about Elon Musk. Doesn't matter. I think that the more people share on this forum, the better the experience is. It's as simple as that. So we really encourage it. Okay, the QDC Employment Service is extremely comprehensive. It is for those who are self-funded through this program. So if you're sponsored, then we obviously can't help you, because your employer wouldn't be happy if we helped you to move to a different employer after they've paid for your fees. So this is for self-funded delegates only. I've been involved in recruitment in the quant space since January 2008. I used to work with Paul Wilmot, actually, and So I've got a very, very wide network of contacts, as do the CQF faculty, as does WBS Training, which runs quant conferences every year. The next one is going to be in Cannes. It's called the Cannes Quant Festival. I love that name. And so we've got a massive network of contacts. So when you've completed the program, if you do need help finding a job, then you know, my team will be able to do that. Okay. Any questions? I think. Here we go. First question. So, date time wise, what is the schedule of the live lecture? Paul, do you want to answer that? I know it's one lecture a week.
Yes. So this these lectures take place. They usually take approximately 2 hours. Somewhere I would say between 1.5 hours and 2 hours, depending on the lecture. Sometimes they do overrun. I try not to do that, but sometimes I do. That's on Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. London time. All material is provided or some books required. Basically, all material is provided. There are no obligatory books, but if you want to sort of reinforce your studies, then we do recommend some books in different parts of the course, but there is no obligatory reading, I would say. And Jeff, I think, has just answered the question on the price.
Just add to that. I'll just add to that to say that there is currently a 10% discount for the QDC program. It is the standard price is £4,995. Excuse me. There are regional discounts and there are also student discounts. So for any of you who want to know what the discounts are, just send me an email or give me a call. And I'll explain how it works to you. There's also payment options. This is really important. So you can either submit there are three options. You either submit the fee in one lump sum, in one installment, or you submit the fee in two installments. So half of the fee this month, and then the second half of the fee, I think it's week 11 of the course, something like that, which would be in April, May, June, about June or July. And there's a third option where you pay £1,000 now. If you're self-funded, no VAT is applied. So you pay £1,000 now, then you pay 50% of the remaining balance in week 11, whatever it is. I can confirm that for you if you send me an email, and then 50% in week 20 or something. I can't remember the exact week, but anyway, so it's just to be flexible and to help out those who want to spread out their payments during the course of the program. So
Jeff, I think Ankit's question is also for you.
Right. Which is, how is this program different from Paul Wilmot CQF? Would you still recommend this program to someone who has CQF or undergoing a CQF program? Yeah, I would. I was part of the CQF program for 9 years. This is very different. It really is. The CQF, you know, you're not delving into programming languages. It's more about derivatives pricing, and there's a couple modules on machine learning, which they've added in the last year or two. I would say the competitor to the CQF is the Machine Learning Institute Certificate, the MLI. And the Machine Learning Institute Certificate, again, it's a 7-month course, incredibly comprehensive, and this is all about machine learning. So it's still a little bit different to the CQF, because the CQF has 2 modules on machine learning, and the CQF is more about derivatives pricing, I would say. So yeah, the QDC is very, very different. The QDC, if you want to become a quant developer, or if you are a quant developer and want to develop your programming skills, then this is the course for you. So I hope that answers your question, Ankit. Is this a purely software engineering course? Is familiarity with quant maths, numerical methods, stochastic necessary? Paul, do you want to answer that one?
Yes, I can answer this one. So, I mean, there is some content, but I mean, there is no need to know any advanced maths or stochastic calculus for this course. If that's how you want to use the material of the course, then of course, your knowledge of stochastic calculus will be helpful. But we deliberately keep the mathematical prerequisites fairly low. And again, if you want to do something on the math side, I mean, it can be CQF. On our side, we have the Machine Learning Institute certificate, so you're welcome to do that. It's significantly more maths heavy. I mean, it's kind of a deliberate decoupling. I mean, in software engineering, you have this idea that you decouple things that are not directly related. And another way of saying this is the separation of concerns. So that's supposed to be a good, sound software engineering principle. So we have separated the software engineering and programming content into the QDC, so that you don't have to, acquire sort of a massive prerequisite knowledge in mathematics. It's just not required.
I think the mini projects question is you do that during the course, don't you?
So let's have a
During
look.
the classes.
Yeah, so there are assignments. I mean, there is no formal. Sorry. Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is no kind of MLI does have a formal project requirement.
Yeah, the QDC, basically with the QDC, as you're going through the classes, you're going to be programming. So that's how it works. So there's no official mini projects to do, because you're doing it as you go through the program. That's how this works. So over the 6 months, that's what you'll be doing. What's the next question? Oh, there was a question on materials. So you don't need to look if you want to read, about programming, you can do, but you don't need any additional materials really. I think the course itself is enough. But if you want to, then, we would strongly recommend it actually. So the more knowledge you have, the more knowledge the more reading you do. In fact, this is something that I should have mentioned for the employment service, is that we give guidance as well. So, when it comes to interviews, you're so up against it, you need to get ahead of your competitors who are going for the same role. So our recommendation, not just a recommendation, this is a must really, is you've got to do as much reading as possible about the company that could be hiring you, not just about the job spec, but also how the job role fits into the team that you're going to be working for, and what's the team's function within the organization, who are the organization's competitors. And one thing, when you do the QDC program, they're going to test you on your programming knowledge and your programming skills, and they're going to ask you questions. Well, this program will give you, not just the programming skills necessary, but also you can talk the same language as the panel who are interviewing you. So it's going to be somebody from HR. It's going to be a quant desk head, and probably their assistant as well. So this program will enable you to answer their questions, and also to know which questions to ask them. The more reading you do, the more questions will come up about the company. It's guaranteed, and that makes the interview more spontaneous. That's a very different answer to the question, do you need materials for the course? But what I'm saying is that read as much as possible whilst you're doing the QDC program. Practice as much as possible whilst you're doing the QDC program. Okay, we'll move on to the next question, which is, where are we? As part of the course, mini projects, we've done that. Is KDB a SQL-based language? Also, in terms of architecture, what is better for the trading system, on-premise or cloud architecture? Paul.
I have answered, I think, the question in KDB
Okay. Sorry.
on the chat. It's a SQL-like language, at least the QSQL component is, but it's not 100% compatible with classical SQL. Books on C++, a tool of C++, 3rd edition by Björn Strustrup. On trading, I suggest that you start with the books by Ernie Chan. These are just some of the suggestions. There are many other things that you guys can go with. If someone is already working in QIS teams of a bank but do not use C++, would this program help them to take up strat role or pricing strat role? Definitely. That's Ankit's question. And are the skills required in the course enough to secure a job? Skills-wise, they are enough. But, there are a few other things that, as Jeff has pointed out, that you need to pay attention to. So I don't think there is anything.
Guidance is included in the course price, yes. So, once you've graduated from the program, get in touch with me and we'll provide you with a lot of advice. It starts off with your CV, because it might be that you're up at, that for one role, you might have 10, 20, 50, CVs for that role. So that's the most important priority, is the CV to begin with. And then once you've got an interview, then we can give you a lot of guidance as to how to get ahead of the other candidates going for the same role. Okay. KDB plus Q is a SQL-like language, at least the QSQL component is, but it's not 100% compatible with classical SQL. Okay, sorry, this was, sorry, Paul, that was your answer. Okay, yeah, that's good. That's good as well. Okay, all right. Any other questions? I hope you found this useful. I think that the whole point of this information session is to provide you with as much information as possible about the program, and post-program as well. So I hope this has been really useful and informative. And if any questions pop up in the coming days, that is paid on the course if you're sponsored by your employer and you're based in the UK or Europe. Then you need to pay VAT. If you're self-funded, you do not need to pay VAT. If you're self-funded from anywhere in the world, no VAT. Okay. What do you think of embracing modern C++ safely? Embracing modern C++ safely by John. Oh, okay. Have you read that, Paul?
Yes, it's a good book. I would also suggest on the modern C++ side to look at Effective Modern C++ by Myers, which is the last book he wrote before he retired.
I'm behind on the chat. This is why, sorry, I'm making you verbalize what you're writing in the chat, which is cool.
Is the final test proctored? I'm not sure what proctored actually means in this context. Do you know, Jeff?
No, I don't know.
What do you mean by that, JC? Do you have invigilators in person? Is that what you're saying? It's done remotely, so there is no kind of in-person invigilation. So it's done remotely in a controlled environment. Given C++ is a lot more difficult to master compared to Python, what kind of preparation one should do before coming to program to benefit max from QDC? Again, I would say just browse through a tour of C++ by Bjorn Strostrup, third edition. That should be enough. I mean, I don't think you need to read the entire book, just the first couple of chapters, but it's not a formal prerequisite, so you will be shown how to program in C++ from scratch.
Hey, as Paul gets no doubt more and more bunged up as the evening progresses, what would you say are similarities of the use of C++ in quant finance and games industries?
Well, that's an interesting question. So, interestingly, quite a few people that I've worked with have come from games, from video games programming. Okay, both are very lucrative. If you are at the top of your game, well, I didn't intend to make a pun, but I mean, I did anyway. So both are very lucrative financially. But the other thing that I think they definitely share in common is event kind of driven programming. There is a nice book that I actually do use in finance, which is the game programming patterns. So that's actually quite helpful, especially if you go into something like HFT. But I would say that, yeah, on the derivative side, I think there is there is more of an emphasis perhaps on like design patterns and so on, and you know, the validation of the code, which you probably don't necessarily get as much in the games world. But the other thing is, you know, for on the HFT side, there are quite a few concerns that are shared between sort of games programming and HFT. So I think I don't want to kind of spoil it for you anymore. But I mean, the other thing I wanted to mention is that you probably know like people from DeepMind. I know that David Silver actually has background in games programming, and he's one of the people kind of behind very interesting ideas in reinforcement learning and implementations of those ideas. For Python and C++, which IDE is used, recommended? I actually don't tend to use an IDE. I use a command line prompt and things like Vim and Emacs. But when I do use an IDE, I tend to use Visual Studio, and I tend to use PyCharm, and I tend to use CLion. It doesn't mean that you necessarily want to use the same stuff as I do. I also use, like for my general programming needs, file and archive manager. I mean, like FAR. But you know, it's kind of a personal thing, like what people prefer to use. We don't force you to use anything that, you know, we necessarily like. We can tell you the kind of stuff that we like. I have Apple, Mac. For C++, what's the recommendation? Xcode. Well, we tend to like Xcode is sort of very Mac oriented, so we tend to on Macs we tend to use Visual Studio Code on top of something like Clang. Modern Python books. So I'm about to release one. I would recommend the books by Yves Hilpisch and Wes McKinney. And yeah, so all of them are pretty good. Yeah, the books by Yves Hilpisch and Wes McKinney, I would say. What kind of alternative data have you used? Loads of it. For instance, Google Trends, Ravenpacks data set for news sentiment, just stuff that I have scraped off the web. Quite a lot of it. So if you want to learn more about alternative data, Saeed Amin, who teaches Python in this course, will tell you quite a lot about it, because he co-wrote with Alexander Denev pretty much the only book on alternative data that there is. It's called the Book of Alternative Data. From your experience, having coding Copilot's been useful, trustworthy, definitely useful. You have to be careful who that data goes to, because whoever is running the Copilot will probably see the code that you are sending it. Okay, so, and that, you know, that your queries may be recorded and stuff like that. So I definitely find them useful. I mean, in terms of are they sort of a slight threat to the job security? They probably are. right? So, but at the same time, you should probably know what they are at least, even if you don't fully adopt them. So, but again, be careful in terms of, cybersecurity, when you use these things. I mean, I would probably prefer to have my local infrastructure with, large language model and so on. Shokamura, okay, so Laurent, okay, I don't think there are any further questions.
It's great when you're about to finish the event, any more questions, and then it goes on for another 10, 15 minutes with loads of questions. I love that. Okay, I see. That's a good statement. I like it. Not a question. So I think we have almost come to the end, unless another. Here we go. Okay.
There we go. Will we be able to implement some kind of quantum MLOps? Yes, you will. I mean, especially MLOps does require programming knowledge. And I mean, things like C++ and KDB will enable you to do things rapidly, to optimize things. But again, I mean, like it depends, it depends on which kind of stack you use for MLOps. But I think a general familiarity with all the things that we teach in this program should enable you to do all sorts of things within the MLOps space. And Said's Python course, I think, module will be, I think, especially useful if MLOps is your focus. But so is the stuff in KDB and databases and finance and other things. And I would say module 5 would also be useful for MLOps because we talk about how to productionize stuff, how to put things into production.
Okay, and just to let you all know, that's okay, don't be sorry. Last question, how can we integrate KDB, Python, and C++ in terms of architecture cloud?
So we teach it in specific modules, right? So, I mean, so KDB, for instance, has the interprocessing facility, which you can use to, for example, link different instances of KDB together on the cloud. You will also do some sockets programming. So we'll kind of understand how to create distributed systems on cloud. So that's to answer JC's question. Are we going to learn ML algorithms, for example, linear regression? If you want to learn ML algorithms, then you probably want to sign up for the MLI program, Machine Learning Institute. With a background in software engineering, working in RFQ engines, will QDC allow me to work on trading engines and HFT roles, please? Yes. Module 5 in particular, I mean, like in all this stuff in C++. So I would say the 2 modules in C++ and module 5, which is kind of quite HFT centric, would allow you to do that. But I mean, the employers may, in the HFT space, ask for existing experience. But with your experience working on RFQ engines, I think that will be highly relevant to a lot of HFT people, who kind of review your profile.
I think, look, just listening to Paul answer these questions with total clarity. I mean, that's the way I'm hearing it, is how he teaches. And this is also, I don't know, if you've seen Ivan or Said, or read Said's books or heard them at conferences or seen them speak. It's a triumvirate of amazingly eloquent lecturers, and that is what makes this program extremely popular. The other thing is that this has been recorded, this session. So if you want to review it, let me know. If you want to share it with friends or colleagues, let me know. And again, if you've got any questions coming up in the coming days or weeks, any questions that pop up, either give me a call or send me an email. And thank you very much for attending. I hope it's been useful.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.